Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 119. Building the perfect compact compound bow. Gearhead Archery with Skip Peterson. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hey there, this is Brandon Grindle with Buck 50, and you're about to listen to another amazing deer hunting podcast with Jay and Dusty on the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Grant Woods from Growing Deer TV. You're listening to one of my favorite deer hunting podcasts on the internet, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hey, this is Steph Brown, the Ohio Huntress. Get ready for another amazing episode with Jay and Dusty on the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Hunting Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. And guess what? Guess who's here with me? Dusty Phillips. What's going on, Dusty?
Oh, man, it's a beautiful day in Ohio and a beautiful day to be on the mic and be talking with some special guests tonight and passing along some more information to take your hunt to the next level.
Hey, I'm with you, man. And, you know, we're going to talk to Skip Peterson over at Gearhead Archery. And for those of you who have not seen this bow, we're going to, believe me, we're going to go into some deep details about this bow. But it's a compact bow. And, you know, we had the whole, revolution of compound bows back in the, what year was that, Dusty? 1998, maybe when Matthews kind of launched their new single cam. And there was all this big activity, and everybody kind of copied that since then. And now this particular company tried something new and went very compact without losing anything. In fact, gaining some advantages by going small. But they had to do some very unique things to the bow. In fact, it doesn't look like a normal bow because the plates are so strange, to be quite honest. They're different than anything we've seen.
Yeah, it definitely makes for probably a different feeling in your hand. And we've never touched one of these bows, but it sparks our interest.
That's right. And I want Skip to come to Ohio and to New Hampshire so that we can shoot these things, or we'll just have to go to the ATA show where I'm sure we'll hook up with him. But it was such a fascinating bow that I figured we should get Skip to join us to tell us about kind of how he, the journey that this bow has been on. Where did it come from? And where is it going? And what does it do today that's different than any other bow? And I got to be honest, it sounds like, an 80-yard Robin Hood is a pretty good testament as to how this thing is shooting. So you had a email, and I did too, a Facebook messenger message actually through our Big Buck Registry page, and you had one personally, I believe, from Adam Bingham.
Yeah,
and
come through Chubby Tines Outdoors. He reached out to me, and the real touching story. And Jay, let's read the message.
Go for it, man.
It said that, just wanted to say thank you after walking out of the woods 5 years ago. I found the Big Buck Registry podcast in September of this year, and it got me excited to go back into the woods. And I've been out 2 times this season here in Ohio and got to see a doe last Sunday at 15 yards from me. It was great to feel that rush again. Thank you, Adam Bingham. Wow, Jay.
There we go. Our jobs are complete. Whatever we do from here on out doesn't matter. We just got that one item accomplished. We got somebody back in the woods.
Yeah, and it's touching to know that by doing the podcast that we're changing lives and attitudes to get back out in the woods. That right there, it almost speaks for itself.
Yes, I feel complete now, so that's good. So thank you, Adam, and good luck in the deer woods this year, and definitely stay in touch and let us know what's going on. I had a little activity the other day at my stand. I actually switched it up and went to a completely different spot where I hadn't hunted ever, except during the gun season, to kind of track some deer into this one area. And I started piecing together some spots of their travel corridors. I always see them in, bedding down in one area, and they always seem to end up in this other area. And I decided to pick a spot in between where I had actually jumped them in beds during the tracking season when the snow's around. And son of a gun, I found this big, giant boulder, and I was hanging out, and I was perched. I didn't have a stand, but I was above the rest of the ground, and I'm standing there until the wee daylight minutes that were arriving, running out of daylight quickly. And of course, I feel this itch on my back. So I promptly try to itch it. And as I do that, I see a deer go jumping away from about 20 yards away. It saw the movement and got spooked. And there were 3 of them. And they jumped into the canopy of the woods where it was completely dark. And they stood there and they stomped and snorted and did everything they could. And I could hear them moving around for the rest of my hunt. And I think had I not itched my back, they would have walked right in the path of a 20-yard bow shot. But of course, you kind of forget some of those things sometimes where you should not move. Definitely not at that hour. Not at that minute.
You never know, and it almost teaches you a quick lesson to mentally override that itch for a few minutes and kind of just hang out there and absorb what's in the area and make sure that you're not about to bump out deer.
Yeah, and if you have to itch, don't do it erratically. Do it very slow, gentle itch instead of lurching forward, and because you never know what's standing around you. Just sometimes you don't hear them coming in. So
that's a huge tip right there.
Huge tip.
If you got a little bit of an itch, don't be scared to reach over and itch, but make your movement a little bit slower than normal.
Yes. Yep.
Just ease over. If you got an itch on your arm or your nose or your ear, just real slow and gentle. Reach up and itch yourself, but be slow about it. Mm-hmm. Because that quick jerk of the arm, that's all it takes sometimes.
That's what it was. I just kind of jumped forward a little bit to get my back or my hand into the back area, and it was that quick movement that they saw that made them spook. And they didn't smell me. They hadn't gotten into the cone of the scent that was blowing downwind from me just at that point. But clearly that movement and where they were standing, they couldn't see me anyway. It was just the movement they must have seen out of their eye, and that was just enough to send them off in a different direction. And they did play with me a little while. I did do some very gentle, light grunts on a buck grunt, and they started to come back in, actually. They came in very close. But at that point, it was so dark in the canopy that all I could see were shadows moving around. I couldn't get a body. Couldn't even tell what it was. But it was just exciting to be out and to know that I got that close and that I picked the right spot. And if it hadn't been for the itch, I probably would have filled a tag just the other day. So
that's amazing. Great story, Jason.
So let's move on to Skip Peterson from Gearhead Archery and find out what's going on with the latest and greatest at Gearhead in the T18 and the T20, one of the most compact, most unique bows we've seen in quite a while. Skip Peterson, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. What's happening, Skip?
Well, I'm just in the machine shop, burning the midnight oil, coming up with some new ideas, and it was awesome that you brought me on the show.
Oh, I think that's pretty cool. That's a good sign that you're still in the shop and you're still doing some tests on some new development.
We're always tinkering. I mean, we're always thinking outside the box, and always trying to look at things a little bit differently.
Sure. So, absolutely not. So, Skip, tell me who you are.
I'm Skip Peterson. I was born and raised in Arena, Wisconsin, which is about a small town of about 400 west of Madison, Wisconsin. And it's a farming community. Live out in the country. It's kind of a driftless area, so it's got the big hills and the river valleys and stuff like that. So it's a nice place to grow up. And I continue to call that home. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So you said you're tinkering in the shop, and you're tinkering in the Gearhead Archery shop, I would assume.
I am, yes.
All right, so
we also make robotic equipment. So we make high-end robots that work off servos and computers, and they're basically unmanned apparatuses that move materials and stuff like that. So the bow industry is an offshoot of that, which we started actually in 2008 when my partner in that, Paul Travakowski. So we were in Buffalo, Wyoming, working on some of the robotic stuff, and I had come up with some other stuff for the hunting industry, which I had patented, and I was doing my own thing at the time, and we kind of got together, and he said, let's make some bows. So kind of how this all started. So he would spend about 40 hours designing the bows, and I would spend about 40 hours machining them. And we just went from one bow to the other. In the end, we ended up with like 11 working prototype conceptual bows. And what we were trying to do was create a bow that had no crossover cables. It was perfectly timed. And that's kind of how we got to the name Gearhead Archery, because we were using gears, kind of like a watchwork, set to time the string travel and without crossover cables. Actually, our limbs were solid, and we were using compression springs and other things for our power mechanism. So we just kept going from one to, and each time we did one, we learned and we went on to the next, and we didn't really think about it too much. We just kept going and going and going. And after probably 8 months or so, we had 11 working prototypes that we decided at that time it was too big of a challenge to go to market ourselves. So we were trying to sell the technology to other existing bow companies. So we traveled a lot. We pretty much went to all of them, and we showed them what we had, and then we started going to the ATA show and showing a little bit of what we were doing.
So you and Pete, you two are the owners of Gearhead Archery, is that correct?
We've opened it up since we've moved back to Wisconsin, and we have I think 9 that are owners. Like everyone that works here they have ownership in the company. So we have it's kind of designed where some engineers have ownership, some machinists have ownership, assemblers, the ones that do our books. So we're kind of like our own company within a company. So
okay, all right. So who is Gearhead Archery? When we look at the brand, we look at the products. Who are we thinking about here? And who's behind all the show? Is it you and Pete, and who else?
Yeah, there's Brandon, there's Jay, there's Jody, Jason. They're a husband-wife team.
Okay.
There's Kent and Craig and Josh. They're basically, and then we have Eric and Mike and Dave. So basically, it's just a group of guys from Wisconsin that have hunting as a passion, and we have our regular jobs, and we've kind of grown this other business here as well. And like when we were traveling around trying to sell our technologies, and we eventually did sell a whole group of patents. We're still thinking, like I'm tinkering tonight, and we come up with this very small compact bow, and we have a 60,000 square foot facility here, so we have everything in place to take this, and we all kind of look at each other. It's like, well, why should we sell this? We got all the components in place to take this to the market ourselves and be very successful. So that's what we're doing, and so far it's going really well. The bow is very small. A lot of that came from, it was a bow that we wanted to see. That when we were out in Buffalo, Wyoming, we did a lot of hiking and hunting in the Bighorn Mountains, and we were going in 5, 6, 7 miles, and you carry those big, heavy bows, and we just looked for something that we could actually slip in a pack and hike up the mountain and go in 2 or 3 miles and then start hunting. So
gotcha.
That was kind of the inspiration.
So you and Pete are hanging out somewhere, and Pete says to you, "Hey, Skip, I've got an idea." Is that how it went down?
Actually, it started on a napkin. We were,
Napkins.
I know a lot of people say that, but we
nice.
We had lunch, and he saw that I was successful with I invented the photo fan for turkey hunting that clips on the quills of the tail, so you can take hands-free field photos. You can use it as a drying tool, and you can hang it on the wall. It's kind of like a 3-step tool. So I took that to market, and he saw what I was doing, and he's just like, you know what? Let's make a bow. And it was basically just a decision. We were at lunch, and he started sketching, what if we did this? What if we did that? And from there, it just kept going, and we'd make something, and it's like, well, that was close. Let's try this. And then we'd make another one. And
where were you?
We were all done. What's that?
Where were you when you're having lunch?
We were at the Dash Inn in Buffalo, Wyoming.
The Dash Inn in Buffalo,
I was eating
Wyoming.
ribs. So I had a lot of napkins, and there was one laying on the table, and he decided to start drawing.
Okay. And what did it look like? I mean, what did the napkin look like when you're all said and done? Was it a mess?
No, Paul pretty much is. He knows what there's no scribbles. He pretty much will go from one. If it's not what he wants, he'll grab another napkin. But we went back and he started sketching, and then we just kind of went from there.
And what were your thoughts at that point? Like, what am I getting into? Or is this? He's like, this is a great idea. I'm going to have fun with this.
Well, I got up to now. I got a 20-year working relationship with Paul, so we've invented quite a bit of stuff, and we've worked together very well. So I just told him, I said, I'll give you 8 models, and I won't question anything. I'll make whatever you come up with.
Okay.
And then we started getting so close that it actually dwarfed into 11. One of the bows we could draw in reverse, which led to the crossbow market.
Mm-hmm.
So we could get the longer power stroke, gives you more feet per second, and it was a smaller framed bow. So and there's a few other bows out there that also are reverse drawn, but ours didn't infringe on their patent, so it was a little bit different. And it actually took the cam lean and everything out of the draw cycle. It came back over 2 fixed idlers, so it made it where your shot was the same every time. There was no variables.
All right.
So
let's break this down a little bit. So you ended up getting 11 different prototypes that you Paul gave you the design, and you made these prototypes, and you're a machinist by trade. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So you went to your shop, and it was a shop you worked at, a shop you have at home. Where did you start actually milling the stuff out?
It was a shop that we were doing R&D work for other industries, and
okay.
we would just work on that in the evenings and weekends and stuff like that.
Okay. So of the 11 prototypes, what was the goal at that point? What were you trying to do that was different than anything else in the industry had seen?
We initially wanted to make a bow that the limbs didn't flex. We had compression springs for power, and we didn't have crossover cables, and we were timing it with gears. And that changed probably by the 5th bow. We kind of got out of that realm, and then we got into having singular cams and just all kinds of stuff. They look kind of more like movie props, but they all shot, and some of them had 0 hand shock, some had a lot of hand shock, some, with each one you learn something. Yeah. And then, but we're just trying to come up with something that we could take somewhere else, and we could sell our ideas to them.
Okay. And
eventually we ended up selling that group of Pattens down the road. They were sold, and we started working on this other shorter bow.
Okay. So the first 11 was not what it is today. So like the T18.
No, not at all.
The T20.
No, not at all.
Totally different. So what did you make the first prototypes out of? What material? Was it a specific material, or was it just to get something that looked like something?
No, it was aluminum. They were all, I machined them as aluminum, and then we custom made our own strings, and eventually we did use crossover cables and stuff like that. We made all that in the shop just by figuring things out. There was a bow shop in town in Buffalo called the Sport Lure, and they started making strings for us and stuff, and we would tell them the string length and where to serve it to and stuff like that, and it'd help us out.
Okay. So you took some parts, you got a little bit of help outside, and then you ended up, and none of this stuff actually looks like it does today. And
no.
But you did develop some technologies with the first prototypes, and which you said you had sold off some of the technology to other manufacturers. So what were the good parts that you were selling off that ended up being like a new revelation?
We sold the whole. The Pattens was under one package, I believe, and we sold all that to one company. I think they only wanted a few certain items of that, and I'm kind of letting that be their surprise, so I'm not going to reveal what is coming under someone else's brand name. That's up, they paid for that, so that's theirs.
Okay. What generally was it? Or I don't know if you can get general, but was it a cam design? Was it a limb design? What kind of part of the bow?
It was more shape and limb configuration more than anything else.
All right. So we're talking about the shape. Okay. All right. And what year was this going down?
We started this in 2008. We went to the ATA show in 2009, 2010, 2011. We were more in the innovation zone at that, where people would kind of see what we were doing and things like that.
Okay.
So that was fun.
2008. All right. So what were you guys thinking about in 2008? Just working with other companies and just designing stuff, or did you even back then have a design for what it is today? Were you even thinking that far ahead?
Well, I guess I was always wanting to have be a part of a bow company, because I figured in my sense, if you're just keep building and building, you're building equity in the company. You're only going to, become more valuable if you're putting forth effort in growing the business. It's just when it was just Paul and I, though, it's very hard to get a boat company off the ground just with a couple of people, and you're limited in manpower and in resources.
Okay.
So that's why today we have all the manpower and the resources for the new Gearhead models, and we just kept that name because it took us back to our history of how we started. Right. There's no gears or anything involved in this bow. It's about the smallest bow you can make and still have a peep location and all of that. And it just it feels good to shoot it.
Okay. So me, just an outsider looking in, who has not actually held the bow in my hand yet, but has simply looked at it from afar. It looks to be one of the most innovative designs that I've seen in the bow industry in a very long time. And, everybody's trying to come up with the latest and greatest and shiniest and come up with some new something or other. But this one just seems completely different. And Dusty, would you agree with me on that?
Oh, absolutely. It's so out of the ordinary that it's fascinating.
Just the look of it is fascinating. You just want to pick it up and say, and play with it, because it looks different than anything you've seen in the bow industry since I don't know what, right?
Right. I mean, we have the side plates that bolt together with the spacers in it, and those are all tongue and grooved. So your spacers have a boss, and your side plates have pockets, so they sandwich together. I believe that leads to no vibration. There's really no torque. All that is taken out of the equation because the material is not relieving itself. It's already structurally, sound. It's a box construction, which is extremely like a tank. You're not gonna bend it or twist it or anything like that. So, ironically, a couple of our first bows we used side plates, way back in 2008, and that's about the only connection that the new bow has to the 2008 stuff. Is that the first two bows had side plates construction.
Okay. So tell me about the design of the T18 and the T20, and let me know kind of the dimensions. If you had to describe this to somebody that hasn't seen it yet and can't see a picture of it, tell me about what you would say to them, like as far as the width, the poundage, how much does it weigh when you pick it up, that kind of thing.
Well, the T18 is 2.9 pounds. That's before you put your sights and your rest and all the goodies on it. So it's extremely light, very well balanced. When you shoot it, there's no hand shock. It's actually the string stop is positioned where you can't even string slap your forearm. It kind of pushes everything out of the way. It gives you protection on that way. Mm-hmm. I think it's the best bow out there. I mean, it's just. We put everything we had into it, all the forethoughts and that. But the neatest thing about it is, if you're a dealer, you don't have to carry a left-handed bow. You can take out 6 fasteners, and you can move your crossover cable position to another module, and you can flip the grip, and you can, in literally 5 minutes, you can change it from a left-handed to a right-handed or vice versa. Okay, now that's something we gotta discuss a little bit. So the same bow can be a left-handed, right-handed bow. Mm-hmm. With just flipping the switch, basically. Yeah, basically you take out 3 flatheads on each side of the grip. Yep. And you flip it, and then the crossover cable rod, you just move that to the left side from the right side, and you move your strings to the opposite side, and it basically in 5 minutes you can change it from one to the other. If you're a right-handed shooter, that is what it is. But as a dealer, you don't have a left-handed person comes in your shop, you don't have to carry a left-handed bow. You can just swap this out. Right. And I would think for manufacturing purposes, that makes things go a lot more efficiently. Yeah. We have the same side plate, works both as the left side or the right side. And then because of that, you have to put in your attachments for for your sight and all that on both sides. So it's really unique about this is the bottom, whatever it is, because we put in extra sight locations, you can actually mount a GoPro. You can sandwich that in between your side plates too. And then we added an extra hole where you can put some Picatinny rail and stuff like that. So you can really customize the bow to different techniques that you want to hunt with.
Okay. So where are you guys making these two bows? So it sounds like these two particular designs are the foundation of the company at this point. Is that accurate?
Yes. Basically, the T18 was the starting point. The T20 gives you a little bit longer draw lengths. See, all these bows are weight specific and draw length specific. So we make both of them in a 40, 50, 60, and 70 pound weight.
Okay.
And then the draw length on the T18 is a 25-inch draw length, and the T20 is a 27-inch draw length.
Okay.
And
so it's a fixed draw length.
Right. And, the thing about the weights and stuff, when we time everything on the Hooter shooter here in the shop is because you don't adjust your weights, there's no measuring your tiller and things that go out of adjustment. It just, like I say, it's a tank. It's a solid piece of shooting equipment.
Gotcha. So when you have to order these things, you order to those specifics, and that's what you got. There's no tweaking. There's no adjusting. You're not going to turn the poundage down on one or up on another. It is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's say you're a 29-inch draw. Is there anything you can do there to extend that?
Mm-hmm. Right now, I am a 29-inch draw, and I shoot the T18. We make a series of releases that are in 1-inch increments. So you can you tie your D loop, and so I have my bow is 25-inch draw, and I have a 4-inch extended release. So that gets me back to my 25 inches or my 29 inches.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right. So to compensate for the lack of adjustability in the bow itself, you've gone to adjustable releases specific to these bows. Ah, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So that makes sense.
Another thing you can do too, if you don't want to, if you want to use your regular release, you can put an extended D loop and serve it every 1.5 inches, or put I would serve like a 4-inch D loop onto my string, and then I would use my regular release, and that I'm actually more accurate that way because what it does is it decouples you from your drawstring. So when you clamp onto your regular string, you can manipulate that string a little bit with your release. When you have an extended D loop and you clip onto that, you can move that left to right and your string stays vertical. So I can pull that back, and then I can tuck my extended D loop right into the corner of my mouth, and I can put like a little knock there or something where I act as a kisser button, and I can shoot it that way.
Okay.
And then my groups are much tighter using extended D loop, but like when we go to shows and stuff to have a lot of people shoot our bow, like someone will walk up and I'll say, what poundage do you want to shoot? And they'll say 60 pounds. What's your draw length? 28. So I'll give them a 3-inch release, and they'll shoot the bow, and then the next person, they might have a 30-inch draw. I'll give them a 5-inch release, and they can shoot a different weight. So I can get a lot of people through the bow in a hurry, so they can feel the draw cycle, because it really is dead in the hand. Your back wall is solid. There's no creep, and it's just, most people that shoot it are very skeptical. They'll come up and they'll be like, are you kidding me? And they'll give you that look, and then they shoot it and they just turn and smile. That's what we kind of call it, the smile, because it just is like, they're kind of astonished by how well it shoots.
Okay. And why does it shoot that well? Give me some of the physics behind this thing.
I think size has a lot to do with it. And again, I think the non-adjustability, our cam is pretty hot. I mean, you have a 7-inch brace, and our cam is giving us a lot of feet per second, and it just, you have that much force, and it shoots fast, and it, with no hand shock, and you got a solid back wall, it just, everything just kind of comes together.
Okay. And are you finding that you can shoot more accurately with this than other bows, or is it about the same?
I find I shoot more accurate, but I don't think it's, what I think it is my Peep is farther from my eye, because it's got 25-inch draw. Envision like how you're taught that you pull your string back, you put the string on the nose, your Peep is right in front of your pupil.
Right.
And when you look through that, you have a pretty big field of view. If you just take your index finger and your thumb and pull it to your eye and look through it, and you have a pretty big field of view. So now take that same thing and push your hand arm length away and look through your finger and your thumb. You see very little. So, I mean, it causes you to focus a lot finer. You don't see all the noise around it. You're focused, really tight. And I I haven't had an issue of picking up the peep when I pull back. I don't even think about it. It's kind of like the rear sight on a rifle. I mean, the rear sight on the rifle is probably 12, 18 inches away from your eye, and then you got the front sight. You still have no problem lining them up.
Right.
You know, so I guess that's the best analogy I can come up with. And there's some clips out there of our one of our business partners, Jay. He's got a YouTube clip out there shooting 80 yards and having a Robin Hood at 80 yards right in the heart. So I mean,
really,
it's accurate. Yeah, very accurate.
Interesting.
And Jay's not that good of a shot. So
all right, so you can turn anybody that's a bad shot into a good shot with a Gearhead T18.
That sounds good, Jay.
I like that. It has a ring to it, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
All right. So when you guys were actually, go ahead, Dusty.
I want to get into a little bit of the specs. Like what's the axle length and everything on these bows? Well,
that's how we came up with the name. Like the T18 is an 18-inch axle to axle. The T20 is a 20-inch axle to axle.
Wow.
Okay.
Both of them have a 7-inch brace height. Really, a lot of the components are the same. The only thing that really changed on the bows was the side plates, which makes them longer. And the cams changed a little bit too, but not a whole lot changed.
Gotcha. Is there a different variety of grips that you manufacture for these bows?
Right now, no. It's all the grips are triple grade walnut. You can go to the website and check them out. They're pretty fancy grip, but not as we speak right now. I guess that could be a point of discussion later, I guess.
Right, absolutely. Is there any difference in the cables that you would have to use to make these?
Yeah. When you go up to the T20 and the T18, they take a different crossover cable and a different string set.
Compared to other bows, is there a different cable system than most ordinary bows?
No, same. It's got the same. It's got all the big bow features in half the size. So anything you see on a big bow or anything you want to put on a big bow, like a stabilizer, a fall-away rest, you can use a slider, you can use a single pin. I mean, you can use pretty much anything you can put on a normal size bow, you can put on ours.
Gotcha. How about maintenance? Say you break a limb. Is there replacements that you can put on now?
If you break a limb?
Yes.
Well, you'd send that back. We'd stand behind that and, replace your limbs for you. But I don't, the only maintenance that we recommend is every 50, 100 shots, you wax your crossover strings.
Gotcha.
Which I think is pretty standard in all bows.
Absolutely. Good deal.
But yeah.
So, Skip, when you guys set out to design this, did it come out the way you thought it would?
Yes and no. It shot better than we thought it would. It was one of those when you shot it, you're just like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's just like light bulbs start going off because it's better than what you thought it would shoot. The whole dead end string stop where it protects you from slapping your wrist, that wasn't planned, but it doesn't allow you to string slap your wrist. So there's a few things like that was just like, well, this is better than we thought. But other than that,
and why is there no string slap on the wrist?
Because the way that the dead end string stop is positioned, it pushes up against your forearm, and because of the short axle to axle and your draw length, it doesn't allow the string to slap your forearm.
Wow.
You don't need a forearm guard. You don't need a forearm guard.
When was the last time you could say that about a bow? Never.
I don't think ever.
Never,
no.
Right? Okay, so you've got some very interesting innovation here that I can't think of any bow that you can do that with.
Right.
Where you can actually make that claim.
And you can put it in a backpack and go for a hike, and no one even knows what's in there.
Well, that was another thing. And so the compactness, I mean, that's an 18-inch or 20-inch. That's very, very small. And some of the videos I've seen, actually, you put it inside of a backpack, just a standard, regular old backpack. You don't need anything special.
It actually comes with a backpack.
It does.
And, we kind of made it that way where it comes because you need a bow case anyway. So we had them where they're made where they fit our bow. Went on a hog hunt in March, and we took a Suburban down, and of course everyone's got those big cases, and some people bring extra bows, and they're driving along and they're sliding in the back, and I literally have my bow sitting right beside me in the back seat, and it's just in a little backpack.
That's great. That's great.
So yeah.
That is excellent. Now, okay, so you got this new design bow. What kind of arrows are we throwing through these things?
I've run a couple different setups through mine. I just got back from an elk hunt where I used the full metal jackets, and I was shooting 480 grain arrow, and I was at 26 inches long on that.
Wow.
And my kinetic energy I had calculated was I think 54. But with a big heavy arrow, I'm not shooting that fast. But I've also had my other setup where I was shooting a 500 spine gold tip, and I shoot 63 pounds, and I was shooting that at 284 feet per second. But at 70 pounds, we're up to like 325 feet per second. So I can really spit them out there.
No kidding.
That's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
That's very impressive.
Yeah.
So, do you recommend carbon arrows, or can it handle aluminum, or better yet, can aluminum handle it?
Well, the full metal jacket was actually a carbon aluminum mixture there, so that's why I was using elk hunting. But we've been recommending most people in the shop to shoot like a 500 spine gold tip. That's what we've been setting people up with.
Okay, gotcha. And are those types of arrows readily available, or is this do you have to start buying special arrows for this thing?
No, they're readily available from any pro shop would have them.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And for the guys that make their own arrows at home, is it something that no big deal?
For like their carbon, where they're actually fletching them themselves and putting their own inserts and all that type of stuff and testing them. And they're good to go.
Okay.
Have not shot a wood arrow to it yet. I don't know how that would respond, but I haven't.
Would you say a wooden arrow?
A wooden arrow, like they do in traditional stuff.
Sure. Yeah, that seems like
shot a wooden arrow.
It seems a little scary, but
Yeah, a little bit. But anyway.
Yeah, I suppose we have to do that someday for fun.
Yeah.
So what's the mission of the company from here? It sounds like you kind of got it all sorted out a bit with a couple of really good products. Where do you want to go from here?
We want to make. We've been known to make the highest end compound bow out there. I mean, we didn't sacrifice anything on quality. Our side plates are military grade 70-75 hard coat anodized aluminum, so it's the very best materials you can buy in our side plates and our cams. Everything is hard coat anodized. We keep with 3 color patterns: desert tan, olive drab, and black, and so it kind of looks a little bit more military. That's kind of the look that we're going for, but we're looking to not sacrifice anything on quality.
Gotcha. And like, if you had to go back and think through this a little bit, what was the purpose of going compact in the first place, as opposed to doing what everybody else was doing?
Well, who wants to do everything? I mean, if you do, I guess our philosophy has always been, if you're doing everything else that our people are doing, you're just a Me Too product. And then the only thing that you have to go on is price point. It's like, who can be cheaper, and it's a race to the bottom. You have to be a little bit different. Like our tagline is rethinking tradition, because you don't think how things are normally done, and you just try to keep a fresh approach to what you're doing. As for coming up with the compact idea, I mean, we were in Buffalo, Wyoming hiking, and we carrying those heavier bows and lugging them, and it just made sense to have something that was a lot lighter, that shot just as good, if not better, and that it wasn't a problem getting them, on your adventure to go deeper and not struggle as much with what you have to carry. If you're carrying less weight and you have more room, it allows you to carry, more water, more food. You can stay packed in a little bit longer. It frees up extra space.
Gotcha. What is a standard bow weigh these days? Like a higher end bow that would be in the similar price point to what you're selling. What would that bow weigh compared to yours?
I think some of them, probably the listeners would know a little bit. I think they're probably 3/8 or
okay,
getting close to 4.
All right, so you're saving about a pound, maybe a little bit more than a pound, and
which is it's about a quarter. Of the weight of what other bows are. You look at it that way. A pound doesn't sound much, but when you figure the overall weight, you're talking 25% less.
Sure, definitely. That's a lot.
There was a race too for lightness. I mean, some people have gotten into totally carbon bows, and so that has been an issue where it's been kind of a race to see how light you can make a bow, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got to be more comfortable for the shooter.
Mm-hmm. Some people like to carry a little more weight too, though. I mean, with our stabilizer system, where a lot of people have stabilizers that come out the front of the riser, our stabilizer comes off the bottom of the limb. So you watch football games, they got those stabilization cameras where all the weight is on the bottom, kind of like a plumb bob, and they kind of have that where they kind of hold it out and they still stay steady.
Yeah.
So our stabilization is actually coming off like the bottom of the limb. So it actually acts as a plumb bob. So like in windy conditions, it always wants to right itself. So if you get any like top side motion, the bow always wants to come back to vertical. So that's another really cool feature with the stabilizer end of things. I mean, it's not sticking way out. It's actually your weights at the bottom. And you can actually, if you have all the weight for like your sight and stuff is on the right hand side, you can actually put all your weight on the left, and you can totally balance the bow through the stabilization.
No kidding. All right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Does it help for longer shots now? I mean, you said that was it John or
Jay
was shooting shot
80
Robin Hood at 80.
Yeah. He's tearing it up. Like I say, he's not that good of a shot.
Right.
He's tearing it up.
So is it reasonable to expect that with the evolution of this bow,
mm-hmm.
that you can, in theory, take accurate longer shots with this bow than other bows?
I'm not an advocate of taking long shots at anything. I think in my mind, 30 yards is plenty far. I think you need to be a better hunter and get closer. But there is people out there shooting longer shots. But I guess what I look at is when you release, one step goes from a long shot to a gut shot or vice versa. And it's just like, I don't like to take unethical shots. And I think sometimes pushing the limits like we're doing, I think, I guess it's all personal to each person. But I know Jay is shooting really good at 80 yards.
Right. And the only reason that, I mean, when you think of a bow, the reason you take closer shots is because there are variables that you can't control. And, you wouldn't,
right.
An 80-yard gunshot isn't a big deal because that was designed to go much further. But with a bow, as the technology advances, are we actually starting to see some kind of a advancement in longer shots with this type of bow? Is this like the first step in a more accurate, more reliable, longer shot to the point where you may not need to think about, hey, I got to make sure I'm inside of 30 or 35 yards?
I think all the bows out there are shooting really well at longer distances, and I think the technology has come so far. I mean, with what they're doing with the cams and the feet per second and stuff they're getting out of bows, and just how they're all constructed, I think a lot of the bows have really, because I'm a little different than what the younger generation is, where I'm 49 years old and I grew up shooting a recurve, and then I moved into like the old Browning Nomads and all those wooden handle ones, and then it went to like the 6-wheel, like the Bear whitetails and like all of that type of stuff. And then the other ones, they had the vertical limbs, and we had a lot of hand shocks. I mean, I've been through the whole evolution of where we've come, and now with the pass parallel limb design and how quiet they are and fast, and the bows have come a long ways. They're no longer a 30-yard shooting utensil. I mean, they can reach out there and be very accurate at long distances.
Okay.
I just refuse to. It's a personal thing. I just refuse to shoot long distances.
Right. All right. So some of the technology is there to shoot further, but not necessarily. You shouldn't necessarily do it. However, they're all advancing, not just yours, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I mean, people look what other people are doing all the time, and they're like, hey, what if we did this? I mean, it's probably true in every industry that's out there. You kind of look at what your competition's doing, and when they step the bar up, you step the bar up, and you kind of, it kind of keeps stair-stepping that way. We've always looked at as a company, though, we look at what other people are doing. We try to do something a little bit different.
Gotcha. Okay. So of all the great things that you've noticed so far in this bow, and probably some of the stuff sounds like it just kind of surprised you. You didn't really know what you had until you started looking at it a little closer. What are some of the cons of this? I mean, are you getting any kind of feedback that isn't so good? I
think for us, because it is so small, a lot of people are skeptical, and a lot of people talk about it before they even shoot it, or they have these preconceived notions that they're like, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that. And I guess all I ask them is just shoot it, give it a try. I mean, when we go to like We went to the Deer and Turkey Expo, we went to Deer Fest, and literally hundreds of people come through and shoot the bow, and they're all skeptical until they shoot it. And it's one of those bows where that's going to have to be the dynamics of it, where people are just going to have to shoot it to get it. Also, because of its size, there is 2 states that it's actually not even legal in, like Wyoming or Montana and South Dakota. They have a 20-inch law. The bow has to be 28 inches to be considered a legal archery weapon. So I mean, there's a couple of hurdles there where we'll probably have to educate a little bit of the dynamics of the bow to maybe get it to pass. I'm not sure what some of the reasonings that are, but yeah, maybe they don't want people shooting kids' bows or something. That maybe they just think that because these smaller bows, they're toys. Our bow is far from a toy. It's a big boy's bow. So those are some of the things that, you know, it's more coming down to education and that, and you'll find that in a lot of things. I mean, if you look at the very first time the compound bow came out, a lot of the recurve people and that looked at it very skeptical, and, you know, then a few people started shooting it, and it's the process of evolution, you know, that, you know, more people shoot it. And today, actually, a guy came in that shot a really good buck here in Wisconsin last week with it. So we put that on our Facebook page, and that is like a 149-inch 8-pointer. And he was saying that he couldn't have got that buck with a bigger bow because he was sitting with the bow in his lap, and the buck was in at 30 yards, and he thought to shoot his bigger bow, he would have had to stand up and get positioned, where here he just stayed he just sat there and just lifted his arm a little bit, twisted his wrist, and he was up in the full draw without the deer even catching him. So,
I think that's that's a huge advantage right there.
Mm-hmm. And another thing too is people in wheelchairs and that. There's this other kid I know where when he goes bow hunting, he's got to have a friend take him because they have to carry the stuff. Where with our bow, he can put the backpack on the back handle. He can wheel himself where he wants to go, and he can just lay it on his lap, and he can shoot from the sitting position in multiple radiuses, and, you know, it gives him independence, which you can't even put a price on that. So
that's a good point right there.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So what about the durability of the item? You keep referring to it as the tank. What do you mean by that?
Just its construction. I mean, with the side plates and then your spacers are all tongue and groove. So, I mean, it's a box construction, which is the strongest construction. It's totally solid. Where other materials, you know, you start being a machinist and machining a lot of aluminum. When you machine pockets and you machine things, and then things go through heat or cold or stuff like that, metal relieves itself and it's moving. It torques in different directions and stuff like that. Being that we have thin side plates that are sandwiched, they're already very stable materials, and then you're bolting them together in a stable construction. It's a tank. I mean, it really is. I mean, the only thing you really have to worry about is waxing your strings. Okay.
Have you had any fail yet? Like, if you have had a couple that have come back, where are the weak points?
We haven't had nothing. I mean, we're good.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, and if anything ever did, we'd, you know, like you said, if a limb broke or something, we'd stand behind it, but I mean, you know, 100%, but I mean, right. That hasn't happened.
Okay. Is there any special maintenance that you have to watch out for other than the bow, you know, waxing the string?
Waxing the string?
Yeah.
No. It's built really good. Okay. Where do you live? I wish you lived closer. Maybe I'll drive to you. We'll shoot one.
All right.
Where are you out of?
I'm in New Hampshire. Dusty's in Ohio.
New Hampshire?
Yes.
All right. I'll go to Dusty first, and then we'll come up to New Hampshire and watch the leaves.
I'm in. I'm so in.
I'm down with that. Absolutely.
All right. Are your leaves turning yet or no?
Just starting in the swamps. Not too bad other ways. But, just the swamps are just starting to turn.
All right.
Yeah. All right. We'll have to do that. All right. So, Skip, I want you to take us we've talked a lot about the bow, and it's a fascinating item. But one of the prerequisites for being on our show is you have to tell a good deer story. So I was wondering if you might take us on a hunt with you somewhere and do a play-by-play and let us know how it went down.
Well, I think everyone remembers their first deer they shot with the bow.
Yes.
For me, for me, it happened when I was 19, and actually, I was finishing up my senior year in high school. It was a homecoming night, and when most people was going to a homecoming game, I was going to the woods. And my ritual, this was kind of before scent control and stuff like that, is I just wore blue jeans and had a camouflage jacket, and I'd walk through the cow yard and make sure I stepped in a lot of cow pies on my way to my tree stand.
What time of year is this, Skip?
This is actually now. It's like September, mid-September. I mean, it was because his fur was very fine. He just shed, and it was just, it was like the second weekend of bow season. Okay. So basically, there was a little bit of mist in the air, but I got to my tree stand, which was made out of 2x4s in a box type shape, and I crawled up in there, and after an hour or two, I got a little sleepy, so I set my butt down where you normally have your feet, and I put my feet up on a limb, and I kind of dozed off, and because it was a little rainy, you could hear nothing, and timing was perfect. I just happened to open my eyes, and there was a buck at 15 yards already on the shooting trail. So
you were asleep and you just woke up.
Yeah, and the bow was on a branch above the box stand. So I got stood up without making much noise. By then he's getting a little bit out of range, approaching 30 yards, and got everything lined up. He still didn't know what was going on. He was actually going out to an alfalfa field, and I shot, and I didn't even know I hit him at the time. He ran off, and then I got down, looked for blood. I couldn't find anything, so I just went back to the farm and got my cousin's husband, and we came back to look for the arrow, and about 15 yards from the arrow, where we were looking for the arrow, we found a little dribble of blood. And then it got really exciting. I had a hard time walking at times, and he'd get shaking. It was your first year, granted, but sure. 19. But it only went like 75 yards. I actually walked past it to get to the, it was dark. I walked past it to get to the farm, but I hit him just above the hind quarter, and it went right down into the liver and into the lungs and the heart where all that junction meets. So he didn't go very far, but he didn't bleed much either because the hit was up high, everything stayed in, and he literally just went and expired. But yeah,
that was in
actually it was
Wisconsin. You said?
Yeah, Wisconsin. Very small fork horn, but I still had him head mounted because you can only do taxidermy on your first one once. So that's what we did.
Yeah, you only have a first year once. That's the way it goes.
Yeah. So
that's fantastic.
And one of my friends was a taxidermist, so that all worked out too. So
very cool. All right, so
yeah.
So how do you, like, if somebody was listening to this and they're like, okay, what is this bow all about? How do you go about buying one? I mean, it's. I know you're a smaller company. Are there dealers out there that are taking care of this stuff all over the country, or do you have to go through Gearhead Archery online, or how do you do that?
It's getting close. We're setting up a dealer network. We have dealers in Hawaii, Alaska, Las Vegas, Wisconsin, Minnesota, I think, Indiana. So if they were to want a bow, I would suggest they go to their pro shop they normally go to, and then have their pro shop contact us, and we can work through their pro shop to get them a bow. We'd prefer to have their pro shop set it up for them. Of course, if that doesn't ring true, they can check out our website and contact us, and we can find some type of arrangement to get a bow.
Okay. And what can we expect to have to pay for one of these bows right now?
The T18 right now is it comes with the pack, and it's $12.49, and then the T20 is $12.99. So it's $50 more for the T20.
T20. Okay, so
yep.
$1,200 range. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Skip.
I know a lot of people out there saying $1,200 for a bow, because I was that way too. But then once you see everything that goes into it, and like everyone's making big bows, it's a little harder to make small bows that shoot good. So I mean, it's kind of, we're putting all the highest quality stuff into it, and that's what the model that we're trying to go after. So
one of the just, and this really has nothing to do with archery, but it has to do with the way things are going these days with social media. Did I see a place to mount a GoPro camera inside this thing?
Yeah.
All right, tell me about that.
Well, I talked about that earlier. Because our bow goes from left to right with the side panels, and we have to put in extra holes for the for your sights and all your accessories. We have to have all those so they're in the normal places. they're put on the side plates, top and bottom. So when you bolt that up, it actually makes a location where you can sandwich your GoPro in the bottom portion between the side plates, which is really cool. And that was an accident too. So, I mean, that was just something where I'm big in the videography and I make tree arms and stuff like that. So it's like, oh my gosh, this will actually fit perfectly inside the side plates. And I just put some set screws and it just, it just worked out. It's one of those things that's like, okay.
So it sounds like a lot of the things that happened with this bow just kind of happened almost by mistake, but it turned out to be pretty darn good.
Well, when you keep going down that road where you're trying to do things different, I mean, I guess how it shot wasn't a mistake. With the no need for an arm guard and the GoPro, and those were just extra features that just kind of came with it. But for like the hand shock and the back wall being solid and how our cam works, I mean, those are all trial and error that we just keep trying to design something that works better than the last time. And it's a process of evolution where you're just trying to keep making things better and better and better.
Right. Absolutely. So Skip, are you a reader? Do you read?
Am I what?
Are you a reader? Do you read books about hunting?
I have a pretty good library. I have 2 lawyer bookcases that I also measure for Pope and Young and Wisconsin Buck and Bear. So I have 2 lawyer bookcases that are jammed full of quite a bit of stuff. Yeah.
All right. So if you had to pick one of your favorite books off of that shelf, which book would you pick?
I've never reread a book.
Okay.
I just get one. I can't have 2.
You can have 2. All right. I'll give you 2.
I can have 2. Okay. Just for the joy of reading, Tim Wells, a long time ago, I bought one called Relentless Pursuit, and I think his writing style goes along with my reading style. It's very descriptive. It's very easy to read. You get down to one chapter, it's easy to go to the next chapter. But for like my technicals that made me a better hunter, so it had to be Greg Miller's aggressive whitetail hunting book, one of his first ones, because
Gotcha.
it gets into like the buck, how to hunt the rubs and explain scrape lines and that. So from a technical standpoint, I'd go for that. Just for the enjoyment of reading, it would be the Tim Wells book. But that's
Gotcha. I've heard
there's certain authors that you just can read easier than others. Some it's just a struggle to get through them.
I agree. And we've heard Greg Miller's name come up a few times now as we asked this question.
Yeah. Seems to be more frequent.
It does. Absolutely. All right, Skip, if you had, and I describe this every week, basically there are these items that we carry in our backpack, whether they're good luck charms or they're actually meant to make us more successful, or maybe it's just a pacifier. What's your lucky charm that you bring with you in your backpack whenever you go hunting?
I have a horseshoe in my backpack.
Seriously?
For real. I was filming an elk hunt in Arizona, and I came across a horseshoe that had been thrown or something. So I put it in my backpack, and just so happened the guy was filming. He shot like a 330-inch bull the same day I found the horseshoe. So I hung on to it.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I
Skip,
like that.
What would the Skip of today tell the Skip of 20 years ago, knowing what you know now?
I wish I would have been told, and I tell it to a lot of young kids, that there's this misconception when you're young that when you grow up, you're going to have all this extra time. And the truth of the matter is when you're in high school and you're in your school years, that's when you have the most spare time in your life. Because once you get through your school years and you start working and you start doing other things and all these other things are pulling at you called life, you don't have that time. But as a youngster, I always thought, when I get to be 30, I get to be 40, I'm going to have all this time to do this stuff. And you don't. And each day is precious, and you take advantage of each day, and you do all you can to make it as successful as possible.
Absolutely. That's a great thing to tell young people.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And whenever there's high school kids that, I tell them, these are your best years. I mean, you should enjoy them, because as you get older, you don't have the time that you have right now.
Yeah, good life tip right there.
Skip, what is your number one hunting tip of all time?
Tip. I always tell people, especially when you're out turkey hunting, deer hunting, and you're kind of down, you're not seeing much, that we'll just say that deer are somewhere all of the time, and it only takes 5 seconds to kill one. It literally, you could have the worst day of seeing stuff in a minutes, in a moment of 5 seconds, it can all turn around. It's just like that. So you always got to keep that attitude that deer are somewhere all of the time.
That's a great tip.
Love it. Well, Skip, this has been a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show and talk about what I believe is one of the most innovative bows we've seen in quite a while, to come down the pike here. So, I can't thank you enough for spending an hour with us and just kind of spilling your guts and really getting inside of Gearhead Archery and letting us know what's going on over there.
Well, we're all gearing up right now for the ATA show, which is in Louisville, Kentucky. So we're working on our booth and the shooting range and all that, and getting everything ready for all the dealers can shoot our bow and they can see what all the fuss is about.
Very cool. So when should I expect to see you in New Hampshire?
Well, it won't be this weekend. I got a bear tag in Wisconsin that's calling my name. But I could definitely go for a road trip here.
All right.
I know I've been in almost every state except the Northeast.
Okay.
And I think that's some trip that I have to take here, fairly soon, just to kind of, I guess my goal is someday to be in every state in the United States, and I think I have like 12 left. So, but there's like 5 or 6 right there in the Northeast corner I could wipe out in one trip.
Absolutely. So. You've got a friend in the Northeast. You
can kill 2 birds with one stone, Jay. On about the 12th of November, I'll be in New Hampshire at Jay's house.
That's right.
There you go. When is that? The 12th of what?
12th of November.
12th of November. All right. You hunting deer?
We're going bear hunt and whitetail hunt.
Yep.
Nice. All right. Well, I got a bear tag in northern Wisconsin, and they take about 6 years to get. So those are my weekends here for the next. Well, hopefully I can get it done this weekend. But
absolutely.
All right. Well, if that doesn't work out, you can get a bear tag over the counter right here in New Hampshire because we get a lot of them.
That's like $150 over the counter, license and a bear tag.
You can't beat that. Sounds like an invite.
It's not a bad
I'll bring you a T18. There you go.
Beautiful. Skip, we'll let you go, but thank you so much.
It's been a lot of fun, Jay and Dusty. Thank you.
Well, thanks to Skip for kind of filling us in on what the T18 and the T20 is all about. Certainly, in my mind, it's one of the more unique bows that we've seen come on the market in quite a long time.
It definitely catches your mind's interest on figuring out exactly if it's a toy or if it's a actual usable compound bow.
Right. It's very short.
Very short.
Very short. But it also looks very unique because if you look at it straight on, or even off to the side a little bit, the panels on both sides doesn't look like any bow you've ever seen.
Yeah, it's like it's 3-dimensional almost.
Right. A tank, as Skip describes. And to boot, you can fit a GoPro camera right in the center of it and still not mess up your shot. Still don't understand how it works, but I know it works because people are shooting deer with these things. So thanks to Skip. Speaking of shooting deer, Dusty, do you have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week to share with us to help us be better deer hunters?
Yeah, sure do, Jay. And I'm going to get into time for crops to come off. Now's the time that the farmers are, harvesting corn and soybeans, and the deer are naturally going to move to that, and they're going to go graze through what the combines have left behind. And we're seeing it more and more here in Ohio every day that you drive by a cornfield or a bean field, the deer are going to be out there grazing. Now, one thing to remember with this, the deer will start out normally under regular conditions in the AM and the shades of the sunrise. So if the sun comes up from the east, the shadow is going to be on the west side of the woods. So the deer are going to graze through the shadows. And as that sun crests the trees, they're going to work back into the woods. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to set up a tree stand on a cut cornfield or soybean field, play that sunlight rising. Play the shadow, because it's going to be a couple good hours of window there that there will be no shadow on the west side of the woods of the east rise of the sun.
That's a great tip.
To keep in mind there that the deer seem to be more comfortable without a shadow early in the morning.
That's a great tip. I love that tip. That's something you don't really think about, and the shadows are so important. I don't think we realize, how important shadows are. Shadows can be completely deceiving because if they're there or not. In fact, you can, just looking in drawings, they look 3D because of the shadow effect. Shadows are extremely important in judging distances. And if you get a bad shadow or if you're not set up right, it could throw off your judgment. So that's a great tip, Dusty.
For sure.
Yep. So where can we find you, Dusty, when you're not hanging out here on the microphone with me?
Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors, Facebook.com/Chubby Gobbler. You can also reach out to me on Instagram at Chasing Antler. And if you want to send me an email right here at the Big Buck Registry, it's dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. Jay, where can the people reach out to you at?
Well, you can also send me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com. That would be the best, most efficient way to get a hold of us. If you have a giant buck you'd like to submit and be famous for a day for 175,000 Facebook contingents, you can send it to Big Buck Registry, bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and all the instructions will be right there for you. If you love this show, please, please, please subscribe to this show in your iDevice. And if you wouldn't mind, please do a search for Big Buck Registry in your iDevice and leave us a 5-star review if you love what you're hearing here. Other than that, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Big Buck Registry. On Twitter, we're getting more active on Twitter, bigbuckregistry.com/Twitter. Or you can always give us a call, leave us a message, tell us that you shot a big buck, leave us a quick story if you wouldn't mind on the audio by calling 724-613-2825. I think that's a wrap, brother.
Big buck everywhere. Big buck.
Love it when you say that.
If you get a chance and you're out in the woods and you're hunting, as soon as you release the arrow, call and leave a message with that amped up voice. Tell us about what just happened.
Exactly. The Big Buck Hotline, 724-613-2825. We want to hear those stories the minute you know it hit.
Leave us a message, and if we get a chance, we may just call you back and talk about your story about how you killed your whitetail. Well, I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is Jay Scott.
And you're listening to the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.